Hey, real quick, it'd be great if you could consider subscribing to the YouTube channel down below. It really helps us out.
Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein, welcome back, my friend. It's about a week removed from the Indiana Hoosiers winning their first ever national championship. We've had about a week to digest, a week to look back fondly at the season that was, the 2025-26 season. We're going to do a little bit more of that today, my good friend. How are you?
I'm really good, Ty. I'm really good. And I say that in a situation that I find myself, I'm in an icy prison here, Ty, once again.
Same here, man. Same here.
Was it the Irsay family that moved the Baltimore Colts to Indianapolis in the dead of night in the moving trucks? I've looked into the logistics of that. I love my family. I love the Midwest. I love everything about my life. But Thanksgiving through May continues to be a challenge for my happiness. It's rough.
Yeah, I had a snowblower break on me.
Yeah.
I was without it through this recent snowstorm. I think I'm going to get it back in time for the next one, which appears to be lining up for this coming weekend. But yeah, man, we're in the mix here. We're in the mix. The season is gone. The season is not going to keep us warm any longer. And here we are today. We appreciate everybody stopping on by. Hit follow, hit subscribe, wherever it is you get your college football shows and content, what have you. We'd love to have you with us for the remainder of this here ride. Throughout the offseason, we got a lot going on in the offseason. We hope you can stop on by here and listen to the show to keep you entertained. I think that's the way it goes, right? Casual dress, off-season on the Solid Verbal.
Casual dress. Even people who don't listen to the show, i.e. my young children, manage to figure out how to use, when they're down here in the studio, how to use the soundboard that I've programmed.
No. Really?
Yes. So I was talking, and then we're going to get into the episode. I was talking to my 4-year-old who just likes pushing the buttons on the soundboard and will just, come down here and, push. Ooh, yeah. And gets in. So I was talking to him, and he was sort of in a sullen mood in the car. And I was like, have you ever heard somebody say, ooh, yeah? And he sort of smiled and said, yeah. And then I said, have you ever heard anybody say, nothing? And he laughed and said, yeah. And then the air was sort of still. And all of a sudden, he goes, again, 4 years old, says, diarrhea.
Diarrhea.
And I could not have been more proud. Let me tell you something. So the ways of this show have infiltrated the youth of America. And you know what?
Diarrhea.
Fine by me.
Why not? Why not?
It's great.
Well, okay, without further ado, we've got a show concept here that, frankly, I don't know if we've ever done anything like this. I know we've kicked it around in the past, and we've done versions of it in the past, but this came together very quickly, shortly before we hit record, like most of the off-season content tends to go.
Yeah.
This is going to be something of a retrospective for the 2025 college football season, Dan.
Yes.
Is that an accurate portrayal?
Yeah, we do the fantasy things before the season, and this isn't quite fantasy things because we're not selecting things that we think or it seems like will continue happening during the season, but this is more of a post-mortem debriefing on the things, whether it's player, coach, moment, media member, sports situation, hiring situation, whatever, that we celebrate as the things that have come to define the season. Looking back, the uniquely 2025 things of the season that, when you say like, oh, like, how can you not bring in Darren Dalton into the Baseball Hall of Fame? How do you tell the story of baseball without Dante Bichette? This is us. I don't think you can tell this. Those Rockies in the 90s.
I just remember on SportsCenter when they would say Dante Bichette happens. Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course I do.
Love that.
And you're Andre Galarraga,
Andre Galarraga, the big cat,
Larry Walker, of course. Yep. There was a lot to those Colorado teams. It was a tough place to pitch, but man, did they enjoy swatting the hell out of the ball.
They could hit. Todd Helton, yeah, man.
So we're saying Peyton Manning's backup, good college football bring back.
That's right.
We're saying, how do you tell the story of 2025 in college football without the following? So this is what we are doing. And this is not our Hall of Fame. This is our Hall of Interesting. maybe mixed with some Hall of Fame in there. But I'm very excited to get all of these things on the record and be very quickly corrected and added to by everybody listening to this and sending us an email at solidverbal@gmail.com or commenting on the YouTube video version of this. Please let us know anything we regrettably missed.
Yeah, I mean, lists like this are always thankless, and we're not going to get everything, but you and I have a pretty big bank of items that we compiled in a Google Doc before hitting go on this.
Yeah.
So we're going to do our best, as you said, to highlight the moments that made 2025 unique in a college football sense. Again, as you mentioned, everybody out there, please send us emails. Please leave us comments. Verballers.com also is where you can go if you want to comment on this episode and be part of our growing community of people who support what we do. Certified and premium Verballers, of course. You won the draw here, which means that you're going to get the first pick. This isn't so much a draft. We're just sort of going to alternate between the two of us picking. These are going to be the 17 most interesting, most unique, most defining aspects of the 2025 college football season. And being so you and I are children of the 90s, you and I have a sound here to lead off this little endeavor, do we not?
Whoever scored and composed the music for Tecmo Super Bowl in the early 90s. I'm not saying it's on the level of the Rocky IV training montage, but it's almost there for my heart. It's approaching. It's an also receiving vote in my heart. So, yes, we are looking back wistfully and fondly about the 2025 season. My number one thing of the 2025 season, all due respect to all of the great performances, all of the winners of conferences and title games and a national championship, I don't have Indiana winning the national championship. As historic and electric and incredible as it was. And maybe it's number 2, maybe it's number 3. But college football is a different kind of sport. We're sort of post-winning in this sport, right? It's TV ratings, it's social media impressions, whatever it is that truly gain you the wins, apparently. I have the Lane Kiffin saga as the number one thing of the season, and I'll explain why. I don't think it's more important than Indiana winning the national championship. I don't think it's more impressive than Indiana winning the national championship. I don't even think it's more historic than Indiana winning the national championship. I think it's more 2025 than Indiana winning the national championship, because it's sort of like, take your pick. You know, like I think of like an NBA player like Sean Marion who would like have a quadruple double. The Lane Kiffin saga touched so many different elements of college football culture that he led an excellent Ole Miss season. This is the first time Ole Miss has ever reached the college football playoff. There was a D2 transfer backing up Austin Simmons at quarterback, who emerged under the tutelage of Lane Kiffin, quarterback whisperer, right? You have Ole Miss as sort of an afterthought in the big bad SEC hierarchy, breaking through and ending up as the alpha of the 2025 SEC season, getting the furthest in the college football playoff. And then you have the newsy social media element of Lane Kiffin. Will he, won't he leave? Will he get a raise to stay at Ole Miss? Why would he ever leave Ole Miss? And everybody on television and podcasting and radio weighing in with their own thoughts. Lane Kiffin tweeting through it, Instagramming through it. And then the story eventually coming out that he's leaving for LSU, but he wanted to stay at Ole Miss. But then there was a team vote that said, you know, some of the guys wanted him to stay, some of the guys didn't want him to stay. There was a potentially made-up story about him needing a police escort because people were trying to run him off the road, even though there was no evidence or proof thereof, on his way to the airport to go to Baton Rouge, telling his assistants that they needed to get on the plane if they wanted a job, possibly using a dog as a social media tool. The hot yoga and Instagram DMs to college girls of it all. Again, apologies to Indiana, who clearly surpassed this Lane Kiffin saga in terms of pure on-field and off-field excellence. But there is something more and juicier and more robust on the bone, literally and figuratively, I guess, of Lane Kiffin. And it's not unique to 25 being a bad breaker-upper. But when you hit all of the different points. It's sort of like when you have the NFL draft physical profile and it's that spider web looking
spider graph, yeah.
Right, the spider graph where it's just, that the hand size and the shuttle time and the accuracy, whatever. I think the Lane Kiffin story specifically hits more of the outer ring of the spider graph of 2025 and is therefore, it's not like I'm making this my number one overall pick, but I'm just planting a flag that it is the most 2025 thing. Feel free to counter.
Well, no, and I think another important disclaimer through this exercise, it is not so much a ranking.
No.
It is not so much a ranking, but it is more a collection of those items that to us jump out and made 2025 unique.
I'm just starting with it because I feel like if there were a ranking, it has to be number one to me.
And you're not even covering all of the different facets of this. Lane is a mercurial character in college football and probably life in general. But all of the things you highlighted, you left some out. How did we even get into this situation at LSU? Firing Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
He was only hired a few years prior. They tried to fire him with cause. Brian Kelly's lawyers immediately pushed back. LSU caved like a house of cards and is now on the hook for the full sum of his $54 million buyout.
Yes.
Then there was also, even before that, the whole Brian Kelly lecturing of the media thing.
Yes, of course.
Which was an exciting little precursor to his eventual fate, now being out of a job but being very rich. After they fire him, there was the whole dog and pony show about the governor of Louisiana weighing in on the coaching search. For a while there, we didn't know who was going to make the hire.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It was all very much in flux
Yes.
at a time when they are in hot pursuit of Lane Kiffin, which I think, to your point about the spider graph, I'm not even sure if that's on the existing spider graph, right?
Well, and it
When
was also, by the way,
start working their way into this thing, it all gets jumbled into a mess.
the governor specifically saying, I don't know who made this deal to pay Brian Kelly all this money. Obviously, the now departed LSU AD, Scott Woodward. But we're never going to make a deal like that. That's so bad for this school and this state. And immediately gave Lane Kiffin a bigger buyout.
Right.
Immediately gave Lane Kiffin a bigger deal and a bigger buyout. And look, it's an incredible story from the fake redemption arc of Lane Kiffin via hot yoga, and then everybody in his hot yoga class immediately going online to talk about how bad he was at as a hot yoga attendee.
Yeah. He controlled the playlist. He wanted to turn it up hotter.
Yes. It has every single thing. It has every single thing that we both love and hate about this sport all in one neat. And to your point, Ty, if we truly wanted to challenge ourselves, we would connect every single one of these stories to each other, right? We could say, okay, this Lane Kiffin thing happened because of Brian Kelly, and the Brian Kelly thing happened because of, leaving Notre Dame and not feeling good about that. And what has Notre Dame given us? Well, Notre Dame this season has given us this. And why did this happen? Because of Notre Dame doing this. The sport is so insular and deeply connected on every level. We could do the Brian Kelly thing and then go to DJ Lagway throwing 5 interceptions. So I don't want to go too far down that winding road. But do we agree? If we're going to, we're not ranking, but do we agree that that was the most 2025 thing?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not even close.
Okay.
It's not, because and look, I'm not going to reiterate everything that you've said, but it touches on all the things. It involves characters and personalities that everybody's interested in.
Yes.
It involves message board rumors. It involves this deep-seated sort of feeling of betrayal from one school to another.
Mm-hmm.
It involves confusion. Who is coming? Who is going? What is going on here? All of the aspects that make any college football story unique and worthwhile and give you that little hook as a college football fan that you're interested even if you don't care about the teams. This had all of it.
And
so I'm with you.
A couple other points, and we could spend the next 35 minutes talking about it if we truly wanted to. One, he was sent off from Oxford with a tender hug from ESPN's Marty Smith.
Marty Smith.
I love that, right?
I forgot.
I love that.
I forgot all about that.
And then, as the sort of postscript of Paul
A tender
Feinbaum
hug.
going on TV saying like, well, I was wrong again. Looks like old Paulie Feinbaum was wrong again. After Indiana wins the national championship and the Big Ten is apparently like a superior entity. Who knows? That's all nonsense. But you get the
Tender hug. Oh my God.
Yeah, tender hug from Marty Smith. We should all be so lucky, to be clear, Ty. We should all be so lucky. And then you have the postscript of the portal time of LSU going national championship or bust in year one, spending God knows how many millions of dollars. And by the way, good for them, good for the players for getting that bag, I guess. Yeah, Sam Leavitt and Jordan Seaton and Prince Will from Ole Miss coming in as, I think, the number one edge player. So LSU is immediately spending like 2026 is a national championship or bust year with Lane Kiffin. Otherwise, you don't, make that sort of effort immediately unless they feel like they have the surrounding pieces around them to say like, yeah, these are the pieces we needed, and we are going to spend like we want to go 11-1 and put ourselves in position to win the national championship. I think it's great. I think you will get people responding to us leading this show over Indiana with like, how sad is it for college football that it's the rumor mongering and the juicy details of.
They know though. Come on. We're going to talk about Indiana. I'll talk about Indiana next, but they know. If you've been following college football for any period of time, a year, a month, this is what drives it all. It's rumors, it's coaching.
Sure. Recruiting.
It comes and go, like all of recruiting stuff,
fire,
portal.
Yep.
This is what moves the needle.
Yes.
No disrespect to the actual teams playing the games, but the coaches are the biggest personalities.
It's LSU. I've already seen quotes from people that like the future of the SEC hinges on Lane Kiffin and LSU working out. Good luck, guys. Good luck, SEC, if the future hinges on that. But it's great. It's a terrific story. I couldn't get enough.
Let's talk about Indiana.
Yeah.
My pick here will be Indiana winning the national championship. Not to repeat myself too much, but now that we've had a week to sit and reflect on what Indiana and Curt Cignetti have done, I don't think it's really even set in for me yet. I think I am still quasi in denial over the whole thing, not because I was rooting against Indiana. We both picked them to win. We both expected them to win, especially with how they handled their business against Oregon the first time this season on the road in Eugene, the way they handled Ohio State and then conducted their business through the first couple rounds of the playoffs, blowing out both Alabama and Oregon before getting to the national championship. But his ability, Cignetti's ability to turn this ship around, not even turn it around, Dan, but to strip it down to the studs and build it as quickly as he did through the transfer portal.
Yeah.
The fact that he had that level of success that quickly, that it was spawning more internet rumors about cheating, tells you everything you need to know about how good of a job he did and how quickly he did it. And if we had had this conversation 5 years ago, as I know you have mentioned, if we told each other 5 years ago that we would be in this position on Monday, January 26th, 2026, talking about Indiana as a national champion, we would have looked at each other as if we had two heads. It's just so incomprehensible relative to where this program was that they would have this much of a rise so quickly. We can talk about what it means, bigger picture within the sport, bigger picture within the context of SEC versus Big Ten, bigger picture within the context of what does the transfer portal mean? How has it changed the game? How has NIL changed the game? Bigger picture, how has Curt Cignetti changed the game? Has Curt Cignetti found some sort of secret formula in the portal era to make all this work? There are a million different directions you can go with this. But in terms of what make 2025 unique, Indiana winning is about as unique a story as we're going to get in college football, because that has never, ever been the case. And specifically so when we're talking about the losingest program in the 156 years that preceded it.
Can I give you a theory that I think I've concocted over the last couple of weeks?
I love theories.
I think Indiana's excellence on the field is obvious. They won the national championship. They didn't make mistakes. They were buttoned up. They game planned well. They tackled well. They caught everything. Like, they didn't make mistakes. Like, that's self-evident. I think the charm of Indiana is not just in that they never won anything ever. I think the charm of Indiana was bolstered, if not turbocharged, because they did so in such a plain way that it was almost a counter to like the salaciousness of the rest of the sport.
Oh, that's 1,000% true. Because if you watched any of what Indiana did this year,
yeah,
and specifically what they did in the playoff, there weren't smoke and mirrors here. It wasn't like they were ripping off trick plays, like they were doing it with a novelty playbook.
Right. I'm not even saying that, but continue.
We spoke to it a little bit in the build-up to the national championship and really throughout the course of the playoff. There was a sense of inevitability with Indiana that stemmed from the fact that they did not beat themselves. And we compared it, I think, haphazardly a bit to some of those Saban teams when he was at Alabama.
Right.
How it just, you knew what you were going to get. They were buttoned up. They might not be perfect. Every win might not be pretty. But you knew that they weren't going to go out there and shoot themselves in the foot. And Indiana was just very good at being very good at the little things.
Sure.
And that, above all else, is, I think, why we're talking about them as a national champion. They were content to let other teams beat themselves. They were obviously good enough to capitalize on those mistakes. And they were just very, very good at being themselves the full way through. So, for me, that's as much part of the story as how quickly Cignetti got them to this point. Because there have been programs around college football, and I'm sure we'll talk about Penn State here before long, but Penn State notably being one of them, that worked for a decade plus to try and build up the culture and the recruiting and the facilities and everything they thought they needed to do to get to where Indiana got in 2 years. That is probably the biggest prong of this story, if there is one to me. Just the speed with which he got to this level is amazing.
So what I'm saying, and everything you said is true, what I'm saying is that Indiana is specifically counter to, one, the like Lane Kiffin of it all, and two, like you look around what has garnered the most attention in this sport these past couple years, whether it's Deion Sanders, whether it's like a golden child in Arch Manning, whether it's, huge portal salary numbers being thrown around, whether it's, the sizzle of superstar, like legit superstar players like Jeremiah Smith or something like that, or it's 5-star recruiting and crazy classes and, the LSU drama and Brian Kelly and Oregon and Nike Flash and USC and Lincoln Riley, like the dramatic elements of this sport, right? Winning the national championship with Michigan, but having all of the cheating scandal hovering over everything like that. The Indiana stories, aside from like losing his program ever, now suddenly excellent, is like, can you believe Fernando Mendoza has a LinkedIn page? Can you believe, and stop me if this gets too crazy, that Curt Cignetti enjoys bland rice bowls every day? Right? Like there was a charm. It was almost like rediscovering vinyl records, going to the library to read books instead of like, there was this like very old fashioned charm to like, yeah, they found a defensive end from Kent State and it worked out. Like there was a bunch of players from James Madison, and like Curt Cignetti doesn't smile. He just cares about being 0.01% better on every snap. And so I think people were charmed by that. Like, hey, there's nothing actually crazy interesting about any of these people beyond they enjoy being the best 3 technique in the Big Ten. Like there was something about that. Like there was nothing with high school recruiting. There were no crazy salaries in the portal. Yes, they're older or whatever, but like it was just like, well, gosh darn, we're a little bit better at football than we were yesterday. And I think that was sort of like the antidote to like screaming heads about the Big Ten and the SEC and the playoff and this era and how do you fix it and who's it. Like Indiana was just like, we're just going to run up the middle for 6 yards and see how it works.
I am currently mainlining every single Curt Cignetti meme on social media. I cannot get enough of these. I have been trapped in this loop now for a week straight and I'm still into it. It has not gotten old yet. The one where he's sort of looking one way, looking the other. There's been a lot. This has restored my hope that social media isn't all bad.
Yeah.
Solely because of those memes. So Indiana.
But do you think there's juice to that? Do you think there's does that ring true on any level to you that
100%.
Indiana's
100%.
plainness? And look, they might have had the catch of the year with Omar Cooper at Penn State. I'm not saying what they did wasn't interesting and electric on the field, but just the Indiana vibe was more just I don't know, man. It's kind of cool that we're just talking about the football of it all.
Well, it contrasts it with what we saw recently at Colorado. I think is just one way you could compare it. I mean, the Colorado story was all about Dion. It was all about the transfer portal. It was about Travis Hunter. It was about Shedeur.
Yeah, I mean, he won the Heisman. He was excellent.
I mean, there's a certain level of excellence there.
Yeah.
But so much of that conversation was about individual players, about the situation, about the portal, about, I think, being a little bit different, right? Not having a predefined mold that they were building the program from.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about any of that with Indiana, right? It was just about, they don't beat themselves. And they're really good on third downs, and they're really good at tackling. Their defense plays a complex zone. It was all about on-field stuff.
Yeah.
And so even though that might not have been as flashy as some of the Colorado or even the Miami storyline, it was football. It was very basic, and they're very good at it. That's why they're the national champions. So Indiana.
Yeah, the juiciest thing he said was Purdue sucks.
Yeah.
Which they do. That's not even that juicy.
Sorry to our guy Eric out on verballers.com.
Yeah, Eric and Ranch Hand Dan. But yeah.
They know it. They know it. All right. You're up. What do you got for me?
My next item? I think my next item, this is not a ranking per se, but things that have to be discussed, I think is the absolute, and there are tentacles to this, the absolute butt collapse of two top five teams in Penn State and Clemson.
You mean my predicted national championship game?
Your predicted national championship. They did play in the postseason, to be clear.
They did play in the Pinstripe Bowl.
You nailed that. There's almost, with Penn State especially, though, there is a really clear trilogy to this all. There's the expectation, there's the collapse, and then there's the search. And when you break it down like that, Penn State isn't quite Lane Kiffin in the spider, what do we call it? Spider profile?
Spidergraph, yeah.
Spidergraph, excuse me. But among a lot of people, it was super interesting to watch Penn State with national championship aspirations come up short against both UCLA and Northwestern, fire the guy who took them to the top 4 mere months ago.
Right.
And then have everybody say oh man, they're going to get somebody huge to coach this team. It is Penn State. Whiff on 37 candidates, include a wrong phone number, or a misdirection from the wrong agent.
Correct.
Crumbl cookies, the fired coach taking a job 2 hours later, and then finally somehow backing into a really good option. I think the trilogy was sensational.
There were some twists and turns. We were at that whiteout game.
Yeah.
And I know you jotted down here one of the other moments that jumped out to you just on a personal show level. Me taking 45 minutes to return from a trip to the bathroom before the game started, which I did discuss on the podcast at some point. But it was crazy. This was an incredible whipsaw for Penn Staters because the expectations were sky high. I don't think anybody who had Penn State that high in their preseason rankings were amiss. There was good reason to feel good about this team. But the deeper we got into it, obviously the Oregon loss in overtime, that stung pretty good. After that point, it just felt like they were spent. And though it's probably a sad indictment for where we're at as a sport, that Penn State would choose to fire James Franklin in the manner that they did mid-season after all he had done for the program, I do think it was justified in that it was time.
Right.
It was time to move on. So I get where they were coming from, but I'm not going to act as if the initial process or the entire process of getting a new person in place was in any way buttoned up. It was not. From firing him mid-season to the wild goose chase that ensued after Pat Kraft went to that podium and announced and got everybody riled up talking about what they were looking for next to lead the Nittany Lions.
Leaked audio?
We had the leaked audio, right? We had him effing this and using every expletive in the book to talk through what he thought was in private about where the program was at and what they needed to do better. We had that aspect of it. There were also these knock-on effects that we saw, not just as a result of the Penn State search, but a very active coaching carousel in general. Everybody else getting raises. Matt Rule getting a king's ransom to win 7 games and lose his star quarterback to the portal.
And is also like 0 and whatever against ranked teams and had to go on, I think, Pat McAfee's show multiple times to not fully deny interest in the Penn State job and turn it into however many, 10, 11, $12 million a year to still not really break through. It has a lot of different elements.
And then, as you said, the way that they backed into Matt Campbell initially reaching out to somebody who they thought could connect them with Campbell, being rebuffed, being led to believe that, no, he's not interested, and then circling back at a later date only to find out that, yes, in fact, he was, and then the deal came together very quickly. So
right.
This is definitely a situation, or was a situation for Penn State, where it did help them to be a big institution with resources in a part of the country that Campbell is familiar with. It did end up working out in the end, and it seems as though recruiting is picking up, and obviously he brought a good number of players with him from Iowa State, not Ohio State. Right. So they're going to be just fine in the short term, but certainly the process to get there was a bit different than we are used to, and I would say the broader context being coaching in college football, how temporary it can be, how fickle it can be now in the era of big money and a 12-team playoff. The 2025 season for me as a Penn Stater will largely be defined by this.
I think that's right. I think there's sort of auxiliary, or maybe not auxiliary, but like sidebar elements for other schools dealing with similar things to what, I mean, we haven't really talked about the Clemson thing, but obviously Clemson's run, the first half of the schedule through the ACC and the losses they had to teams like LSU and Georgia Tech, 2 not terrible teams to whatever extent, but Clemson falling off and Cade Klubnik not fully working out and the offensive pop not working out, defensive issues for Clemson, and just not being able to build on 2024 at all. It wasn't a huge surprise because Clemson has been, by their standards, down for a few years now, even though they've won the ACC, they've won a bunch of games. But again, they set a bar that seems to be much higher. And then dealing with the portal inactivity over the years, and now dealing with portal weirdness with a Cal linebacker and Ole Miss. And it's just been a frustrating year, I'm positive. If you're a Clemson fan, if you're Dabo Swinney, if you're any of these guys, it just the total process, it just seems like more of a self-contained movie than a trilogy like Penn State had. But similar to Penn State is, I think the number 1 preseason team was Texas.
Right.
Was it not? Right. I don't know if they were 1 or 2, but they had 1 against 2 on the opening week against Ohio State. And it's been extremely rare where a quarterback has been such a household name before playing full time.
Well, I think that's the story. And it's probably got less to do with Texas for me. Yeah. If we are listing out these items that we think made 2025 unique, it's more about Arch Manning than it is about the Texas Longhorns, because we all know the story, right? Quinn Ewers goes pro, paves the way for Arch Manning. This is supposed to be like the second coming of quarterback greatness within the Manning community.
Right, the new generation, yeah.
Manning community, Manning
no, there's a community of Mannings out there. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it took a while to take flight. Now, one thing I jotted down here on our sheet was post-concussion Arch Manning was, sure, I think, more of a preview for what we're going to get this coming season now that he's staying in school. I mean, he looked good after he got his bell rung. And I don't know if there's any science behind that or if he just started getting more comfortable with the system. For whatever reason, he got much better and looked pretty good down the stretch. So that part of it is very exciting, but it is almost a cautionary tale of putting too many expectations on somebody too soon before you actually have a body work to rely upon.
Yeah, in general, the Texas season with Arch Manning, right? Bursting onto the scene on a stage like that against Ohio State, having the commercials for, was it Warby Parker, Viore, stuff like that.
I saw one the other day.
And it's like, throws a back-breaking interception, go to commercial break, and there's Arch Manning collecting money, talking about like how great his vision is now that he's wearing Warby Parker glasses. There's like the Texas season in general was, the disappointing offensive line play, the close calls against Mississippi State, and who am I missing? Kentucky, and the emotional and crazy impressive second half against Texas A&M to finish out the season, nearly giving away the Vanderbilt game. Like, there was a ton of entertainment. They didn't really find receivers. There was a story about Steve Sarkisian potentially being interested in the Tennessee Titans job that he quickly denied. There was a lot to the season that ultimately fell short of Texas expectations after, making the playoff the past couple of years. But yeah, the Arch Manning of it all, like not looking super strong against, was it like San Jose State and who was Sam Houston, I want to say, or UTEP. Right. It was, UTEP and San Jose State. After that Ohio State game, people were like, is this guy? Like, he could never have met expectations, basically, short of winning the Heisman.
No.
And so the introduction and wobbly nature of his season, I think, is one of the things we have to consider about being a defining chapter of the season.
We need to talk about Bill Belichick and the on and off field antics. I can't believe it's taken this long. I think it speaks to just how unique 2025 was. But the full Bill Belichick experience this season, from the off-field shenanigans to the on-field, I guess, lack of production, at least for a while. How would we grade out Belichick in year one, just in terms of what we saw on the field for North Carolina? We can layer in the other stuff later, and that certainly is a funnier element to the Bill Belichick story at UNC.
Right.
But just in terms of an on-field product, how did we feel about that? How do we feel about that now as we look ahead?
It was very bad. It's hard to distinguish between what North Carolina was on the field and what North Carolina was quickly trying to put together a roster, and they did so poorly by all accounts. That they had a really easy, workable schedule. North Carolina didn't play Miami, correct?
No.
North Carolina didn't play Pitt. You look at some of the quality teams on their schedule, and it was like a disappointing Clemson team and Virginia and Duke. That was like the quality on the ACC portion of their schedule. All due respect to Wake Forest, who had a pretty respectable year, all things considered. But this was a year that North Carolina with Mac Brown wins many more games than what they won with Bill Belichick. And so I would say, given schedule, given what his name is in football circles, for them to assemble that roster and then really kind of crap the bed against their schedule, which was one of the easiest in the country among Power 4 teams, I would say crazy disappointing.
I look at next year's schedule, I think it looks harder.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was one of the better schedules in the ACC this year. And so it was set up for them. I mean, they brought in a bunch of guys pretty late in the cycle, but it didn't amount to more than 4 wins in year one. There were a couple games in there that were one-score affairs that maybe could have gone the other direction, but even still, they're on the fringes of bowl eligibility. We'll see if it gets any better this year, but I think the most unexpected element of the Belichick story is obviously the off-field stuff.
Yes.
The off-field stuff is really the curveball that we didn't see coming. I don't think it's any great surprise that a new coach in year one, after having to reboot and bring in a bunch of players and bring in personnel and kind of start everything over, I don't think that in its own right, whether it's Belichick or anybody,
yes,
that to me isn't a huge surprise. That happens all the time, and that's not necessarily the end of the world. But the off-field stuff with Jordan Hudson, and we're not going to make this a gossipy show, I promise you, but all of the stuff that we read about on that side of things, you may recall there was a moment in this, I don't know, first half of the past season where it looked as if there were reports coming out that potentially they would move on from Belichick already before the end of the season, which is not something that I had on the bingo card. And it was obviously because of performance, but clearly because of some of the other antics that I don't know if people at UNC bargained for. Now, they've decided to stay the course. He's going to be there again. I don't think Belichick's going to be hired by anybody in the NFL, although the Browns desperately need a coach. So maybe they could go in that direction if they really wanted. But alas, I just feel like the Belichick story is fine on the field, but the off-field stuff to me is really the most unpredictable and ridiculous part of the whole story in 2025 for him.
Yeah, and look, it's that is the sort of gossipy nature of this all, and it's not gossip like he is dating Jordan Hudson. She is his girlfriend, or fiance. I don't know what they are in this recording time, but we've had legendary big names in this sport, that are out of school forever or that come down from the NFL, or are just whatever. They're older, but like the idea of this kind of story with this kind of coach and reputation for excellence taking over the story of him coaching in college, right? That we never had a story like this about Bill Snyder or Bill Walsh or any of the other Bills, I guess, just Bill Belichick. That there is that unique nature to this being an extremely 2025 story with like the Instagram pictures and, the subject of Pablo Torre's terrific podcast. Like there was that unique element to this story that I just felt very 2025. And then going on the news, and I'm sure you have the sound all queued up, the like not going to talk about it, where she is looking over the shoulder of the interviewer with what he can and can't talk about. Like it was just in terms of optics, it was a doozy, Ty.
Not talking about this.
Thank you. So, you have to include that. But like, I also appreciate it, and this is another sort of tentacle of it all, was the opener was against TCU, right?
Right.
And I want to say it was a Thursday or Friday night. It sort of stood alone on the sports calendar. Everybody was paying attention to it.
And they knifed their way down the field.
They knifed their way down the field on that opening drive. And the
it was
immediate
like,
reaction.
Oh, man. The best ever to do it in the NFL is back. He has figured this out in college. Nobody is any match for him.
Correct.
Was it Skip Bayless? Somebody, one of the talkers, the hot take artist, was out there on social media talking it through, like already giving him the trophy.
Yeah, like, watch out, college football. This guy's going to be a capital P problem.
Exactly.
And
then they lost 48-14, and I believe we all went to bed early. That was the Monday night game.
Yeah, we all watched TCU look like a real college football team in that moment, and then I think UNC they barely beat Stanford, and then beat a Syracuse team that was maybe the worst Power 4 team in the country without Steve Angeli. And it was a long year, and not so much a problem for the rest of the sport as a problem for North Carolina football. So,
but hey,
we're talking about it.
One score affair on the road at Cal.
Yep.
Went to overtime with Virginia, a good Virginia team.
That's true.
A one-score affair with the eventual ACC champion, their rival, the Duke Blue Devils. That one was at home, 32-25.
Yeah.
So there were a couple games in there that maybe could have swung the balance of the season.
Yeah.
And changed the narrative a bit. But they weren't there. This was still a fairly bad team. And we'll see what he can do in 2026.
Whose turn is it right now? I think it's mine, or is it yours?
Go ahead. By the way, we're going to need to turn this into a part 2.
That's fine. Totally
Part 2
cool.
coming on Thursday. I'm cool with it. This is going to be item number 5 here. We've committed to 17. So go ahead. You go.
The strange reverse Alex Hanold that was the Alabama football season.
Oh, man.
Just falling in the back half of the year, but somehow like Homer Simpson tumbling down. Remember the episode where he was like the daredevil type and falling down the canyon, like the boulders and the branches and the cacti and everything, except Alabama somehow landed the dismount into the Lamborghini that is the college football playoff. And then immediately, throwing the Lamborghini off a ravine. But It was.
Well, they won a game, though.
They did win a game.
They won the game on the road at Oklahoma.
But listen, as somebody who considers himself to be an expert at rooting for a team who gets throttled by Indiana, Alabama got throttled by Indiana.
They did.
In the Rose Bowl, and just the weirdness of it all. The weirdness of Alabama's season. Opening up, losing to Florida State. I'll never quite understand. Losing to a Florida State team who immediately went on to continue being Florida State in the way that we've understood them to be these past couple of years. And then just finishing the season terribly, not being able to figure out the run game, save for maybe 2 out of 12 games. Backing into the playoff after getting throttled by Georgia in the SEC championship game, who they always beat.
Yeah.
Having the committee and ESPN sort of pretzel themselves into a take that Alabama is, of course they should be in the playoff after how they finished out the season and how the rankings played out, and getting in over Notre Dame. Like, I'm not a Notre Dame fan, but it was quite the pretzel. And having them lose, I want to say 38-3 in the Rose Bowl. Yeah. I've never seen anything like that in this sport play out the way that it did, where you're not even justifying their season. Like, look, it was a tough September, but the season is a living, breathing. No, this happened in December where they looked terrible. I just thought that it's very strange to see a team wearing Alabama's uniform go through what they did and somehow still end up positioning themselves well enough to end up in the top 12. It was wild.
And there are a couple other really interesting tentacles to the Alabama season.
Please.
Especially given the way it ended. Mm-hmm. And especially given that the Michigan job did come open, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point very soon, if not on this episode, definitely the next. But the rumors around Kalen DeBoer, remember, there were rumors about maybe he'd be interested in Penn State. There were rumors that maybe he could be the guy at Michigan. The sort of almost half-hearted denials. No, we're happy here. No, we're just getting started. That whole side of it, I thought added a little bit of texture to the Alabama season.
Yeah.
There was, of course, I also jotted down here, the Ryan Williams disappearing act.
Definitely.
Side of this, which dude was on the cover, on the title screen of College Football 26. He obviously burst onto the scene, but what I think became apparent the deeper we got into the season is that one play in his freshman year where he put crazy moves on a defender. That play was carrying a lot of water for the Ryan Williams overall experience, because he did not show up in big moments this year. So there was that side of it. And then there was the whole side of, how does the SEC fit into this whole playoff conversation? Right. Greg Sankey was on TV, and I don't even blame Greg Sankey. It's Greg Sankey's job to carry water for the SEC. But going on, making the case for 7 teams in the college football playoff, Alabama kind of rode in on this wave of, well, yeah, of course the SEC deserves to have more teams. Of course the SEC is the strongest conference. Of course this, of course that. The SEC's bowl record, postseason record, not counting the games where they played each other, was something like 2-8.
Yeah. So
Alabama getting into this thing, despite being a very, very flawed team that everybody knew, even Alabama fans knew, rode into us. Everybody knew that they were flawed.
Mm-hmm.
The weird turn that the Alabama program has taken now over these last 2 seasons after Saban left and DeBoer took over, that's going to be really interesting to follow moving forward. For as much as it was a story this year, I kind of feel like it's going to continue being a rather large story in 26,
sure,
27, until it feels like they're getting back to this point of being more of a stable entity. They're going to be good again, but the most recent expectation for Alabama through the Saban era was they're an S-tier program.
Right.
They're elite. They're going to be in the running for this championship each and every year. I think very quickly that is not the case for Alabama. And we're going to see what that looks like now in 2026, if they're able to kind of get back to that level, or if it's going to continue being a talking point.
You're right. To build on what you said about Kalen DeBoer, the interest was happening as Alabama was building more disappointing results upon more disappointing results. It was like offense being able to do nothing against Auburn. Should Michigan pay him $15 million a year?
Exactly.
Disappointing performance against Georgia. Should Michigan pay him $18 million a year? Right? And is Penn State now involved after Alabama looks terrible on offense? Like, he denied a lot of the interest in having conversations, and I think has been pretty straightforward. But this new Alabama in the portal didn't do anything spectacular. Like, their high school recruiting has been good to really good to great, whatever. And we'll see what they do with a new quarterback. But it seemed like Ty Simpson didn't really even consider coming back. Like, at the end of the day, it was sort of like, I'm either going to declare and like weigh these transfer options, but then said, there's too much tied into my heart about Alabama. I'm going to the NFL. It's strange to see after they've been the standard bearer of the sport for so long. And by the way, on your like Greg Sankey point, maybe I'm off on this, and I'm sure many people will tell me I am, but the SEC kind of painted itself into a corner with the like, it just means more here. It's just different. Look how deep we are. Look how great we are at the top. And then it's not like there has been a Big Ten campaign to say like, we disagree, right? It was just the SEC beating that drum over and over again. Like, the SEC has been the one to control, and perhaps they've been right this entire time, or at least in the 4-team era or the BCS era, whatever. But that's been their talking point. And as soon as there was a dent in that talking point, then you get, what was it, Paul Feinbaum and Matt Berry? I'm like, TV ratings, though. You're just like, what? Why are you debasing yourself? What are you doing? Just take the L. And then, of course, the national championship between two non-SEC teams had a bajillion people watch it.
Which, by the way, we whiffed on. We whiffed on that point. You and I both thought that because Miami, and I mean, no disrespect, but Miami, I would say, as compared to like Ohio State, is a much more regional fan base.
Sure.
Indiana, though it's got an enormous alumni base, the largest living alumni base in the country, it's not necessarily a fan base that is activated to care about football. It's largely being considered a quote unquote basketball school. Mm-hmm. And I think the root of our assumption was the fact that Indiana's not like a blue blood that typically moves the needle in terms of ratings.
Right.
So that's where that assumption came from, but we were wrong. The numbers were huge, and I'm happy to see. I'm thrilled to be wrong about that, because I think ultimately that's like a good thing for the health of the sport to get new teams in there, and have overwhelming interest from the college football fan base.
Yes. But yeah, it was funny that was like the thing, right? That was the thing, is like, it's the conference as a whole, the strength of this conference is unrivaled. And then to bank and invest everything in that talking point and then have it sort of disintegrate in front of everybody's eyes, it's just been a different watch. It's just been a different experience. So yeah, weird year for Alabama, and we'll see. New quarterback that, whether it's, I think, Austin Mack or Keelan Russell coming, who was a Kalen DeBoer recruit. We'll see if, some years in the system and familiarity, maybe it's a better result on offense, but different kind of year for sure.
The other tentacle to this,
please,
is you going on our show maybe right after the conference championship games, or it might have been our live reaction to them announcing the playoff field. Mm-hmm. Where you went on the rant about anyone who works for ESPN and talks about college football is compromised.
Every single one.
And we cut a short. Zach, who does a lot of the shorts for us, does an awesome job with the shorts. If anybody needs a good short form guy, let us know. We'll hook you up. But we cut that and we posted it. Because it was one of those moments that was charged. We when we're creating those, if anybody else has done this, you try to capture those moments that are pure and emotional and can get people interested. And we got people interested. Many of them work for ESPN and didn't like the insinuation.
Yeah, we had people sliding into the DMs. It was pretty great.
It was. The Alabama thing was very much a flashpoint for this season.
Yes. Which, by the way, that was followed up by, so I say, everybody at ESPN is compromised as it relates to talking about who does and doesn't deserve to be in a playoff. The playoff, a property ESPN owns, the SEC, a property ESPN owns, followed up by people on whatever it is, First Take or any ESPN property. What did we just have? Cam Newton talking about, like, when was the last time Notre Dame was relevant? And the host immediately saying, they were literally in the national championship last year. And right. Cam Newton, again, talking about TV ratings. You're like, exactly. See? Dan Rubenstein, not so wrong all of the time. Wrong all of the time for sure, but not always. And I don't know, just a fun end to the year.
Let's do like two more here, okay?
Okay.
And then we'll kick the rest into part two.
Yeah.
2 group of 5 teams making the playoff.
Yeah, baby.
I think is a big part of what made 2025 unique. And of course, it was a story that developed the deeper we got into the season. You and I were scoping it out all throughout the month of November. It was enabled by the fact that a 5-loss Duke won the ACC championship.
Awesome.
Which, speaking of things that make it unique, I believe with the latest rule change to the college football playoff, even though they're going to be sticking at 12 now, they are going to give auto bids to whoever wins the conferences, the power conferences. So Duke would be in if the whole thing played out this coming year. So would Notre Dame, which would have been its own debacle, to say the least.
Yeah.
We'll get into that, I'm sure, at some point, probably in part 2.
Mm-hmm.
But James Madison, Tulane, both make the college football playoff. Both are very much overmatched in their games, and both lose in resounding fashion.
Yes.
The conversation that took place after those blowouts was entirely predictable. The conversation that took place before the blowouts, though predictable, had some new angles that I had not previously considered, i.e. it's a safety issue. Did I hear it's a safety issue?
Yes, of course. The Helen Lovejoy, Urban Meyer, Joel Klatt triad of won't somebody please think of the children. Yes. It was great. It was great to watch
Dying over here.
The sort of hot yoga of it all, stretching to figure out what the problem is with James Madison, who, by the way, the safety let them have their own championship. Like, it collapsed so quickly after James Madison was so much better at Oregon than Texas Tech was on a neutral field against Oregon. Like, it was having the national championship be helped by James Madison players, by, guys like Elijah Surratt and D'Angelo Pond. Like, it was so fun to see that kind of conversation collapse and crumble before our eyes. That everything was connected with, like, Darian Mensah leaving Tulane. Tulane gets the quarterback who leaves BYU, who is in the playoff conversation, immediately get to the playoff. And James Madison, with their connectivity to Indiana, get to the playoff. A Sun Belt team get to the playoff. James Madison's been in the Sun Belt for 3 hours, and they made the college football playoff. And that those two teams made the playoff, very few people atop the sport decided to look at that like, isn't this a wild thing? Isn't this just a great thing for the wildness that is college football? No. The reaction to that was, we must never have this ever again.
Right.
And kind of silly, kind of funny, but it's the reality. And yes, Tulane got throttled by Ole Miss, but that was its own funny thing because Ole Miss was without its head coach, full circle, who desperately wanted to leave the school but stay a little longer to see it through, and have the interim / now full-time head coach in Pete Golding lead this Ole Miss team to a couple pretty huge wins. So it was great.
We celebrate when the so-called mid-majors go far in the basketball tournament.
Mm-hmm.
This is not apples to apples. I get that. But it's interesting to me to compare and contrast how we feel about, let's say, a school like a James Madison or a Tulane going far in one tournament but not the other. And I maintain my argument from the entire season, even after these blowouts. These aren't the first blowouts we've seen in college football playoff action. This was the talk of the town when we had a 4-team playoff. Saw plenty of blowouts. It didn't cause them to change the process, didn't really cause them to change the format.
Are they allowing fewer NFC West teams in the NFL playoffs after what the Seahawks did to the 49ers a couple weeks ago? Did the NFL pivoting on their NFC West stance? Probably not.
Exactly.
It's a blowout. It happens.
It happens. And I don't think that is an indictment on the process. I don't think that is an indictment on the G5 teams making it. I don't think that's an indictment really on anything here.
Right.
This is sports. You have this happen. If you're going to have blowouts, I'd rather see them in the first round than in the national championship, right? The ultimate goal here is to try and get the two most deserving teams, the two best teams, to play it out and somebody win. And if it takes a few games like this to really sort through, separate the wheat from the chaff, then so be it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have any issue with two G5 teams making it in the playoff now, and nor will I in the future. Now, what happens in the future? Again, my hunch is, knowing the money that is at stake here for these conferences to get as many teams in as they can, to give themselves more of an opportunity to get into that field and go deep in the field. My hunch is they will continue to find ways to make it harder for G5 teams. But as it stands right now, I think this is going to be one of those conversations that remains very polarizing, but in my view was very healthy for the sport, to just prove that regardless of what conference you are in, if you put together a special season, you will have an opportunity to get into that playoff field, and it doesn't need to be limited to just one of you.
It was, the conversation around that, and a lot of it came back to like the weird ranking situation with Notre Dame being ranked above Miami, even though Miami had beat them head to head, and then Miami jumping Notre Dame for no reason at the end, and then Alabama coming in, and the way that Duke season ended up winning the ACC. And the close game was actually a really good game against Virginia in the ACC title game. There was that suddenly like a pro Notre Dame, like it is so dishonorable that this playoff doesn't include Notre Dame and it includes James Madison in this scenario, that it is so dishonorable that Notre Dame is not in this playoff. And when you have a program as honorable as Notre Dame, who almost decided to play in the postseason, Ty, I don't think people realize that.
We'll get to.
Hold on, write this down.
Get to this.
Notre Dame strongly considered playing in the postseason.
We'll get to this,
and I don't think people understand that. They did consider it, but ultimately, the honorable program that is Notre Dame football decided that this wasn't the kind of postseason for them per se. I think people rightfully point out that this could have been a better playoff with Notre Dame. I don't know.
We will put off the Notre Dame discussion until part 2.
It was close, Ty. There's no doubt about it. It was close to happening that Notre Dame would lower themselves to play in a bowl game, but they had to do what was best for them.
We will talk about Notre Dame in part 2, but two G5 teams getting into me.
Yeah.
Definitely added an element of uniqueness.
Yeah.
The 25 season. We've got one left on this episode, Dan. We're over an hour now. Mm-hmm. I promise we'll get through the other ones in part 2. We've got about 10 more to get through, but I think these are the ones that come to mind first. They're the ones that lead to a little bit of a longer discussion.
Can you give me something fun? Can you give me something that everybody will agree was a fun part of 2025?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lee Corso's retirement.
Okay, not fun that he's leaving necessarily. Fun that we got to honor his contributions to the broadcasting element of the sport.
100%. College football is rooted in nostalgia. College football is rooted in these little quirks, these things that make it different from really any other sport. Mm-hmm. And when you've got a broadcasting legend like Corso, who has been very much part of the Saturday morning experience for millions of college football fans out there.
Yeah.
If only because he put a mascot head on at 11:58 before the week's games would kick off. Whenever you can honor that, I think that returns us back to our roots and makes college football feel pure again. Despite the era that we are in with the money and the transfers and the ratings conversations and the playoff and all of the things around us that have changed dramatically, Corso was one of those bedrocks. So the fact that he walked away obviously is sad in a sense, but sort of a full circle moment with Indiana winning the national championship this year. Sort of a full circle moment with him getting that opportunity very early on in the season. I guess it was week 1 to put on the mascot head for the last time. I felt the way that the college football community honored just that very specific, very unique aspect of its fabric with Corso in the very beginning of all this.
Yeah.
That to me is a cool story that I will remember. And I have made light of other retirement tours that we have seen in the past.
Yeah.
Notably the Keith Jackson retirement tour where everybody gave him gifts and then he came out of retirement.
Yep.
Which I love.
Yeah,
one of the
course.
all-time great grifts. The way that they honored Corso, I thought was very, very fitting. And they did a really good job of paying homage
Yeah.
to a great legacy there.
Yeah, there are very few people where you can say like they're one of the seminal voices of the sport, whether it's a play-by-play guy or a studio host, and certainly the iterations of Game Day over the years with both Chris Fowler and Reese Davis and Herb Street and Desmond and, you know, the guys and women who have come and gone. You know, Aaron Andrews was a part for a long time. Like there've been a lot of huge names on Game Day, but like, you know, the lasting image is Lee Corso, pencil in hand. He was like a pencil executive too, right? Was it Ty Conderoga?
Conderoga.
The pencil in hand with like the not so fast and Bill Murray throwing him down when he's in his 80s or what. Like there's the lightness that Lee Corso brought to that show, coupled with, and this was part of the retirement tour of, you know, element to this, was like, here's a bunch of like Lee Corso stories. And I know maybe like, I don't know if it was you or somebody else told me that he could be a little bit ornery or something like that, which by the way,
saw it. I didn't like Corso for years because of what I saw when I was out at a Notre Dame USC game.
And we all have bad days and we all, you know.
He seemed like a jerk, but that was sort of without context.
Totally.
And I was very young, so my mom remembers it.
For sure.
Reminded me many times this year that she remembers that moment, but that's an anecdote.
Right. The
bigger
public
picture, Corso was a huge part of the Game Day experience.
No, and the thing that when I was reading, because there's all these like stories, right? That like there's an oral history of the Lee Corso experience at Game Day and everything, you know, that was happening behind the scenes. And they all sort of agreed on one thing, which was Lee Corso didn't really like to do anything the night before games. He liked to go to bed early. And anytime you'd go to his hotel room, he was already in his pajamas at 6 p.m. and had hoarded all of the free snacks available to him at all of the meetings on Friday or Thursday or whatever. And I thought to myself, if I can end my life or my professional life as somebody who is in their pajamas in a nice hotel room, surrounded by snacks and love all of the time, I've done something right. And I respect the hell out of that way of living professionally. Going to bed early, surrounded by free snacks. I don't know. That made me gain an even bigger respect for somebody who I really enjoyed watching over the years.
There have been a lot of personalities.
Yeah.
In the media, in sports, that for one reason or another become larger than life.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of the experience. Few and far between, but they've come about here and there. And Corso, I think, for college football is one of them. It absolutely feels different to watch the broadcast. I mean, they got a lot of smart people up there, and I guess we can debate that too, but it feels a little bit different without having him up there to put on the mascot head and be part of the final segment there before they kick it over to who's ever playing at noon.
Always kept his shirt on, by the way.
Always kept his shirt.
Always kept his shirt. As far as I can remember.
Yeah.
Always kept his shirt on. All right.
So there you got it. We got Lane Kiffin, the Indiana Hoosiers, the Clemson / Penn State / Texas freefall, the Bill Belichick stuff, Alabama's season, 2 G5 teams getting into the playoff.
Yeah.
And now here to close things out, your 7th item is Lee Corso and his retirement. We will have a bunch more to discuss on our next episode. We would encourage people to write in solidverbal@gmail.com, comment on the YouTube videos, comment out on Spotify. Anywhere you can leave a comment, please do so. We've got more than enough time to incorporate some of your feedback into our part 2, and we would love to hear from you. I'm sure we have a long list of things here.
Yeah.
I know we've been talking for over an hour about just 7 things. We have a
we have a really long list.
We have all the way as granular as Missouri State and Delaware in year 1 of the FBS and what they did. Kennesaw State finishing 10-4. West Virginia with 53 transfer. We have a long, very detailed list of things that jumped out to us.
Yes.
And I am certain that we missed a bunch of big ones. So we would encourage you. This is an open invite. If you're going to yell at us about something we said, that's fine. But please take the opportunity to write in with things that we missed because we want to be as complete as we can.
This is almost our version of the signatures part of the yearbook, right?
Yes.
Hey, remember when we couldn't stop giggling in Algebra 2? I'm so sorry we didn't become friends sooner. TTYL, Jess, 640. Did you have those? Did you have those in the back of your yearbook? I can't believe. No, specifically the message of I can't believe you were such a great guy all along. We didn't become friends until senior year. I'll bet a bunch of the ladies were writing that in the back of your yearbook.
Oh, yeah. No, so many.
I bet there was a bunch of Jesses in there.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Ty had to buy extra pages at the end of his yearbook. But yeah, this is what we're doing. This is the signatures page. Remember all these weird things that happened to us. Love, Dan, and Ty. Yeah, we got many more. So this is actually is very weirdly cathartic for me to put a bow on the season with the lingering feelings that I'm just writing out in the back of Ty's yearbook here. I love it.
I love it too. Again, open invite, everybody write on in. Let us know what we got right, what we got wrong, what we missed, what you'd like to hear more of on part 2. I already tipped the pitch a little bit. Obviously, we're going to have to talk about the whole Notre Dame thing before long. We will talk
hit
about
all
that.
The major beats.
We will talk about some of the players and additional storylines that jumped out to us. We want to know what jumped out to you. Leave those comments.
Yes.
We will be back on Thursday. We will be publishing twice per week all throughout the offseason. So if you've yet to hit follow or subscribe, we'd appreciate you doing so now so that you don't miss any of those episodes. And of course, verballers.com is where you can go if you want to support the team, help Dan and I keep the lights on, keep doing this full time.
Can we license vitamin C? Is that something that we could as we go?
Yeah.
Is that even a reference that anybody understands that's under 40, 35?
I have it on the soundboard. I'm afraid to play it.
Yeah. We can maybe an 8-bit
because of the
version.
Copyright strikes, but yeah, if you can find a MIDI version.
Okay. I'll find that for part 2.
For that guy over there, my good friend, Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildenbrand, thank you for bearing with us, hanging out here. Another episode will be back on Thursday. You know the drill. Stay solid.
Peace.